It's time for some hostile therapy. All right, everyone, welcome back to Hostile Therapy with your host, Big Red, and I have someone who's going to probably help me with something that is probably dear to my life. It is dear to my life. It's time. It's Mr. Ryan Braves. He doesn't want me. Well, he's thinking about changing his name to Ryan Braves if he hits the Latin culture in the future. But we're gonna call him by his given name, Ryan Braves, who is married with 3 boys and runs a company called Ascension, which was created for building better men, help businessmen who are married and with families build up their businesses without neglecting their most prized asset, their family. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
I'm excited to have you on too, man. Now, let's get straight into it. Now, let's just get into your background first,
Sure.
and tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got to where the position where you're at right now.
I always ask people this question: how far back do you want to go? So if we're going, if I can make it short, right? I'm a product of a broken home. Parents got divorced when I was just 2 years old. My mother still is, unfortunately, an alcoholic, drug addict, and my father was clinically diagnosed with bipolar disorder, depression, and he was in and out of prison my entire childhood. So there's periods of time that were very unsettling in my childhood and my upbringing, all the way to the point when I was going through school, I was sleeping in my car. And I think what a lot of your guests probably want to hear more so about is the business, the family stuff. So for me, I was a serial entrepreneur, as I like to call it, with a lot of big failures that allowed me to be where I am today. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say are some of the biggest failures that you had to experience? Because I don't like to call it failure. I like to just call it mistakes. It's only a failure if you don't learn from it. That's why I try to tell.
So it's actually a really great point. So I don't even mind calling it failure. It just depends the kind of relationship you want to have with failure. When I was younger, when I started out, in the world of business and entrepreneurship, my relationship with failure is, if this doesn't go well, I'm not good enough. If this doesn't go well, I'll never be successful. If this doesn't go well, maybe I don't have what it takes. And that's what happened for me on a multitude of occasions. Now for me, a failure is very simply feedback. If something fails, that's okay. Like I had a phone call before this where, we're doing online marketing and things like that, and the numbers came back a little bit subpar. That's fine. Let's just talk about it. Let's figure it out and figure out what we need to do moving forward to get to where we want to be.
Right.
So to come back to your question, what are some of the biggest failures? Is I was very surface level with some of my businesses. I knew a little bit, and I thought that would get me through. But then when you're competing against people that's all that they do,
right,
you get blown out of the water. So that's number one, is really like not really knowing the business. Number two is not really understanding how to hire, train, and build a culture within an organization to be able to, have people that are going to support you and to be able to leverage them to do more and create more.
Right.
And then I would say number three, this was more so on like me trying to build an empire. I started to invest money in places and spaces I had no idea about. I was just betting on other people's dreams instead of developing a skill set within inside myself to improve myself and then do that stuff later on down the road. I kind of had that reversed.
Okay. And how have you transferred the mistakes that you've made earlier on?
Yeah, there was.
Go ahead.
There was a point in time. I mean, literally, it was before I got married, probably going back to 2013, where I pretty much lost everything. I mean, at that time, I think I was like 27, 28, 29 years old, around there. And I had 4 or 5 different businesses outside looking in. I was driving really nice cars. I had really nice clothes. I was going to really nice places, right? Like going to Las Vegas on the weekend, Miami, doing all this stuff that outside looking in, you're like, holy shit, this kid's really young and he's doing all this stuff. So I was making a lot of ego moves. And then everything kind of came crashing down all at the same time. And my wife and I, we live in New York, but we got married out in Laguna Beach, out in California, this beautiful venue, like this amazing place overlooking the ocean, rented a house on the beach. Like it was an epic wedding. And I'll never forget, it was Sunday before we were going home after the event, the amazing event and everything. And I literally said to myself, I have $3,000 to my name in my bank account. I don't know what I'm going to do. And the office rent was due. Our rent for our apartment that we were living in was due. And I had that moment. I was like, a few things are going to either happen. I'm going to have to change my lifestyle, right? Downgrade my dreams, downgrade what I want to be and do in life. Or I'm going to have to invest in myself. I'm going to have to improve the skill sets that I have superficial knowledge in, or that I don't have at all, instead of betting on other people. And that was the path that I took. I just doubled down on myself over the next several years to really build and do what I'm doing now.
Okay. It's really interesting you say that. Let me ask you this question. Because you have multiple businesses, right? Mm-hmm. You deal with retail, healthcare, and several other things, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. If someone is trying, and I think this speaks to, I guess, burnout too, and maybe having too many hands into one thing. My question is, if you have several business ideas, or actually if you have several businesses going at the same time, how would you say you should go about going about with those businesses? Should you work on one at a time and build one up and then come back to the other two? Let's say you got three, build one up, come back to the other two. Can you do all three at the same time? How would you advise somebody to do that? Because
I'll answer that question. I'll answer that question and I'll go backwards. So the answer is yes, you can do them all at the same time. There are people that have 50 businesses, right? Like the Tony Robbins of the world. Like all these people have all these businesses, and you go, holy shit, like how do they do that?
Right.
But we see them where they are now, and we go, how do they do that? Mm-hmm. And I think the beautiful thing about an entrepreneur and a business owner is you've been gifted, right? And I'm saying this to you and all the listeners. You've been gifted with a curious mind. You've been gifted with a problem-solving mind. So your mind is constantly thinking about, how do I solve that problem? Oh shit, I could solve it. Let me start a business and solve that problem so I can help people and give back. Right. That's the beauty of our mind. But it's also the curse, because we have so many things that are going on. So I believe the mistake is we start to do all these things at the same time,
right?
Not really mastering. I'm talking about really mastering one at a time. And then you build a team where you can then leverage yourself, your systems, and the things that you're doing well, and then move on to the next thing. And hopefully it's somewhat related, so you can bridge the gap, and the learning curve is much easier. So the biggest mistake I made, right, is I was in the health and wellness space. And I did pretty well. Like I opened my first business in 2008, and I was doing pretty well. And I was like, I'm successful. Let me go invest in real estate. I didn't know anything about real estate. So I started investing in real estate. And then someone said, hey, do you want to open this franchise concept? And I was like, I did the health and wellness. Let me do that. And then someone else said, hey, do you want to get involved in these restaurants? And I was like, right, how hard can restaurants be? People need to eat, right? So I did that. But I didn't do anything well. I just did a whole bunch of shit at the same time, and then realized that I wasn't doing anything well. And that's when I can't compete with the people that have it mastered. So to concisely answer your question, yes, it can be done, right? Start and master one thing, and then build an amazing team so you can create space for yourself and move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Okay. And yeah, I think that's a big point too. Trying to do it all by yourself can also bring about burnout without a team. Yes, you do have to definitely have a great team with you to help you move on to those other businesses. Now, when you add the aspect of marriage and children and the businesses that you have to juggle, how are you helping these entrepreneurs who are married with families delegate those times to those three things?
Sure. Great question. So I would love to speak to two different types of people for a moment, because I'm sure your listeners fall into both categories. I'm sure you have listeners that are married, and I'm sure you have listeners that might not be married at that point, at this point in time. So first, I'll speak to the people that are not married. The most important decision you're ever going to make in your life as a man, this is my belief, is that people say that you see it on the memes and all these shows, the day you were born and the day you figured out why. That sounds great, but I truly believe it's the day you pick your partner, because that person will either support you and build you up and love you, or they will absolutely destroy you, whether that's their intent or not.
Right.
So you have to have someone that's going to support you and what you're looking to create in life. They have to understand what it looks and feels like to be a business owner, and then be on board with that. Okay. So that's number one. Now, if you are in a relationship, then it's having the ability to create space for your partner. And the only way you can do that is if you become hyper efficient with time. You got to be really focused. There can't be any kind of wasted time or space, because then you're stealing from something. So if you're there and you're just randomly checking Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, if it's not for your business,
right,
you're stealing from your business, or you're stealing from your family. It's one of the two. So you got to be really focused on your time efficiency and effectiveness there, for sure.
Okay. Give me a rundown. Like, what is a average day for you from start to finish? How you run that down?
So exercise is really important to me. So I get up between 4:30, and if I'm willing to sleep in a little bit, 5:15.
A little bit.
I know. And I get my workout in. I get my first workout in. Then I come back. And then my wife, she goes and works out. So I create that space for her. And that's when I do morning routine with the kids, right? So we get up, we read a book, I make them breakfast, we play baseball, we do something in the morning where I can connect with all three of my kids. And then I'm off to the office. And then I'm having meetings, I'm on podcasts, I am on sales phone calls, I am creating content. And then I wrap up my morning at about 11 o'clock. And then I'll do my second workout for about 45 minutes. Then I'll go home and I'll have lunch with my family. So I love making my kids lunch. So I'll have lunch with them. I'll play with them for a little bit. I'll get like a 10-minute nap in. Then I'll head back to the office to do the exact same thing I did in the morning.
10-minute nap.
Yeah.
Everybody listen to this. 10-minute nap. See, this is
if I'm lucky, but sometimes I have one of my kids jumping on my head. So that goes out the window.
I do those all the time. 10-minute power naps.
Quick. And then I do the same thing I did in the morning, in the evening, and then I'm home by about 7 o'clock. And then my kids go to bed a little bit later, because for me it's very important that I spend time with them. I told my wife when we first had kids, I said I didn't have kids just to say I had kids. I actually want to be with my kids a lot. I love it. So like last night, right? I got home at 7. We played baseball. We had a dance party. We read books. And then after that, I'll come down, and that's my connection time with my wife.
Nice. Now that is set. So when do you actually get the regular hours of sleep? How many hours of sleep do you get a night, do you think?
I would say I'm pretty much done by about 11 o'clock to 4:30 to 5. So what is that? 5.5, 6 hours?
Yeah.
And here's it's not optimal, right? Like I can't sit here and lie and be like, that's optimal. That's how you're going to improve your health, by getting 5.5, 6 hours sleep. But this is the phase of life that I'm in. Right? I eat super healthy. The only thing I drink is water. I exercise twice a day. Like I'm in prayer. I do meditation when I can. I don't listen to stupid shit on the news. I listen to podcasts and books on tape, and I'm reading. So I'm filling my mind. The only thing that I'm lacking is sleep. But I have 3 young kids.
Right.
I have multiple businesses. So I know I go in with the right expectation that, hey, I'm not going to be the most well-rested person right now at this phase of my life.
Right. I'm with you, man, because that's about the same amount of hours I get.
Yeah.
4 or 5 6 hours. 6 hours is a great night.
Yeah.
I've had nothing to do, which is like never. I always have something to do. And I want to speak to this part where you were talking about just being a creative person and always thinking about what's next or whatever. And that's how I am. I'm always thinking about how I can improve on this, how I can build time here, how I can improve on myself. And I think you have to have that type of mind to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
You want to build and want to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
We did a show here a couple weeks ago where we talked about certain traits of men. We talked about like alpha traits, beta, delta, gamma, omega, sigma. Do you think you would have to be one of those type people, or one of those traits to be a successful entrepreneur and family man for that to work?
If I could be honest with you, I don't even know what all the classifications are.
Okay.
I just always either have been told or maybe have classified myself as like an alpha personality.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean like if I get in the room with a UFC fighter, like they kick my ass. Like I'm not going there. I think you have to have hunger. I think you have to have desire to be a business owner and entrepreneur. And then also, I'll say more than anything, you have to have resiliency. You are going to get punched in the face every day. It's not just like, it's not just like once in a while, like, oh shit, something bad happened. It's like every day something will happen. Like there was a few weeks ago in my health and wellness business, we had our one of our busiest cash, like actual, not like credit card stuff, but like cash over the counter collection weeks ever. And then the next day we came in and we have an X-ray unit in one of the rooms that does like digital radiology. The battery melted through the bottom on the floor. Wow. Like if you could imagine the bill, it cost me 10 grand before 10 a.m. to get that thing fixed. So it's like stuff is always happening. So you must have resiliency in order to be able to be in the game for a long time. I used to always go, why me, man? Like, is it ever going to get easier? And the answer is absolutely not. You just have a better relationship with failure and getting punched in the face. That's it.
Right. Yeah. And then you can just learn from that. And next time you'll know how a battery won't melt through the floor.
And that's the thing, man. It was one of those things. The guy comes, I'm like, hey, dude, what happened? He's like, freak accident. I'm like, great.
Stuff happens sometimes.
Yeah. So,
well, just to break down a little bit, I'll go through three of them. Alpha, I mean, some people, Alpha is kind of almost self-explanatory. Alpha, is usually the loudest one in the room, but he's a leader. People flock to him because he looks like he knows what he's doing. He has something about him, a passion about him that people like to follow. I would say I'm more so a Sigma. Sigma are people like, let's say, Tom Brady or Kobe Bryant. Okay. They are leaders, but they don't have to necessarily have people flock to them or whatever. They follow their own mindset, and they can. Or James Bond, we'll go like he's not the loudest one in the room.
Sure.
He doesn't need a whole bunch of people crowding, because if he did, he'd probably be shot like the first 5 minutes, because people are like, oh, hey, I'm the super agent, I'm 007. Yeah. Oh, that's who you are. They are leaders also. They are leaders just like the Alpha. They just can do it in a quiet and relaxed tone. And people not necessarily don't flock to them, but they're not the loudest one. They're like a lone wolf, put it that way. And I would say that's how I am. But they're also passionate about what they want to do as well, too. They just don't follow other people's thought process. They have their own mindset.
Got it.
I would say I'm a Sigma in that matter. So I'm not the loudest one in the room, but
yeah, I'm not the loudest. So then take me out of the Alpha category. I'm definitely an introvert by nature, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I will go with Sigma on that one. So, cool. and there's not to say there's nothing wrong with Alphas.
No,
they have their own place. We need somebody, I guess, to be loud and and do the karaoke, the drunk singing, whatever. So there's nothing wrong with alpha. So
They'll also be the first guy to get the swing taken on them too. I'll just sit back.
that's true. Be in the back, like, see,
Yep.
okay. Okay. So let's get back to, I guess, married businessmen that are going through your program. So what are some other things that you try to teach them to help balance business and family?
So for me, we have it broken down to three important pillars.
Okay.
Your fitness, your health. Like, see, here's the problem, man. If you haven't had a health problem, right? If you haven't had a serious health problem before, everyone just takes that for granted until they do. And if you're going through sickness, disease, anything like that, then nothing else matters. You can't focus on your business, and you sure as shit can't focus on your family. If you have young kids, you're not running around after them. So we focus on the health of the individual. Now, I'm not going into counting macros and all that stupid stuff. That's for a nutritionist, that's for a personal trainer, but we get people on the right track. Most people are so disconnected, right, from what health and movement is. They wouldn't know what it is if it hit them in the side of the face. Right. So we get people a foundation when it comes to their health and fitness. Then what we do is we create financial stability in their personal finances, right? Like, are you spending your money on frivolous, stupid shit and working so hard and not being able to accumulate and invest? And we do that on a very surface level as well. People that just don't know what to do, we get them moving in the right direction. And then we take a look at the business. That's why I work with business owner entrepreneurs. We take a look at the business. Where are you now? Where do you want to go? What are your deficiencies? What are you really good at? We build on what you're really good at, and we start to plug those holes and patch up those holes. And what they're not doing so well, fix them, teach them new strategies. And now that business is healthier. Hopefully, then they're able to create an amazing team, and then they can create space and actually be the husband and father that they were really created to be. Because no one gets married to not have an amazing marriage. No one, I hope most people who are thinking about having children don't have kids just to say they have kids. Like, they want to be active fathers. And maybe if they haven't been active fathers, they realize how important it is in their lives, like meaning their own lives and the lives of their children and the future of this country, to be an active, participating father. So we teach them ways and strategies on how to do that and how to maximize that family aspect. And we give them like cool date night ideas and things to do with their kids and ways to bring up and raise their kids. So that's actually my favorite part of the entire thing that we do. I love being a husband and a father. Like, that's like my passion. The business stuff is more analytical for me. Like, I just see things and I could help people through a process. So it just works. But I love getting into the family stuff, man.
What would you say is the biggest reason someone would fail the program?
Well, I'll use your words. No one fails unless they quit, right? And I'll say, unfortunately, here's what I'll tell you. The reason why people don't start the program, okay, is because they haven't felt enough pain yet. And here's the reality, right? When a man comes to me and their business is on the verge of failure, they're like, what else can I lose? I'm all in, right? Or they're on the verge of divorce and their kids don't even know them, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then they're like, okay, I'll do whatever. Just tell me what to do. But it's that person that's headed down the wrong road. That things are not horrible, but they're not going in the right direction. They're like, I don't know, maybe I'll give this a try on my own. And unfortunately, the saddest stories that I hear are the people that come back 6 months, 12 months, 2 years later, that are like, hey, dude, like, I wish I would have started this when I first spoke to you. But here I am now.
Okay. So let me ask you this question then. What does family life bring to you at this stage in your life that you would not have if you were single at this point?
Chaos?
Chaos.
No, this here. Listen, I always say, like, people are like, "Oh, dude, like, what are you up to this weekend?" I'm like, I don't know. It'll be controlled chaos. I have
Right.
soccer for both my kids. I have hockey for both my kids. I have all these filming lights that I do content. I bring them all home, set up my backyard. We play baseball until 10, 11:30 at night. Like I said, we have dance parties. So it's madness.
Mhm.
But here, you said, what would I not have if I was single?
Yeah.
My relationship with my wife is absolutely amazing, right? Amazing. I never knew the level of love until I had kids. Like, the way my kids hug me, the way my kids look at me, the way my kids talk to me is like a whole different kind of level of love. So if I was single and I didn't have children, I would say that I wouldn't even know what that felt like, to be perfectly honest with you.
Empty. Sounds like.
Not necessarily empty, because I don't want anyone to think that they don't have that their life is like meaningless, but it's the next level.
Okay.
It's kind of like, untapping that thing that you can't get to unless you have that situation.
Right. Okay. Better to have loved than never loved at all.
Yes,
Kind of thing.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let me ask you a would you rather question on this one then.
I love these. I ask my wife, "Would you rather's all the time?"
Would you okay? Would you rather have more time in the day to complete your task or keep your children younger longer?
Children younger longer. That's not even a dude. Bro, like, literally, let's say I have to travel for business, which I actually kind of stopped doing because I didn't like being away from the family. I will go through my phone at thousands of pictures from when I have a 4-year-old, 2-year-old, 8-month-old, but I go back and look at like thousands of pictures from when my kids were born to current. Yeah, no question for that for me.
And when you're delegating time, I know you kind of went through the timeline for your family. Who is, I think I probably already know the answer to this. Who do you delegate more time with? Let's put it, if we see if we can put it in percentages. Let's cut the business out part. As far as your wife and your kids, how much time do you delegate between those two?
Yeah.
If you put it in percentages.
So, I'll say this. People are like, "Oh man, like you do everything right." No, I don't. And the place where I would say I lack right now is I do spend more time collectively with my kids than I do with my wife. Because for me, I'm trying to give all my kids the same amount of individual attention. So what I mean by that is if I take all 3 of my kids to the park, that doesn't count for me. I still want to spend time with my oldest, then time with my middle, and then time with my youngest. And I try to do that as equitably as possible. So I would say, to answer your question, if you're asking for numbers, I would say 75% with my kids, 25% with my wife. But this is what I consider as a little bit of a key for me right now. When I'm with my wife, it's no distractions. Right. I'm not on my phone. I'm not taking a phone call. I'm not doing something else. I am there with my wife because I know that time is a little bit more limited than what I would like it to be. So I'm all in on that, 1,000%.
It's very precious, and each boy, I'm sure, has different personalities that you have to adhere to.
Yes,
and they just want time with their dad. They just want individual time. Eventually, with you, whatever. Playing baseball or just talking about what happened at school. So it's important to separate that time. So yeah, I totally get it. And the wife definitely needs that time. And if she's, I would say a good wife, she understands they need their time too.
Yeah.
Make sure you give me some of that 25%, 20%, whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which segues into another important part. If you are too busy with your businesses, I'm not saying you, but I'm talking about these other people who are just too busy and they're like, well, I got to work. I got to get this stuff done. I got to get this stuff done. I got this stuff done. Or I got to deal with the kids, the sex life. if you're too busy and you're coming home tired and you have no energy and you can't accommodate her needs or even accommodate your needs, there's going to be an explosion
Yep.
at some point.
Yep.
And you can put it in, but so much. This is like a soda cup, a Sprite or whatever. You shake it up for so long, eventually, if you open it up, it's going to spray everywhere. It's not going to be. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah, it won't be the good kind of explosion. So that's
right.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, man. So I'll say this first and foremost: sex life is extremely important to the deepness of a relationship on both sides. On both sides, people think like, oh, if we don't have sex as much because we have 3 kids. Right. Eventually, that's going to become a problem. You might be able to get away with it for a week or a month or even 6 months, right. But eventually it will become a problem. And then what starts to happen, right? Like men, I would say, and I'm making generalization, men need that physical connection. Yes. Whereas more so on the women's side, they need that emotional connection. Mm-hmm. So here's what happens. If that's not being fulfilled and satisfied, people are going to start to look for that fulfillment outside the relationship. That's it. It's just very few people can be unsatisfied and unhappy over the long haul and stay committed to that relationship. That's why divorce is so high right now, right? And infidelity and adultery is so high because those needs are not getting met. So here's the deal. You could be as busy as you want in your business and tell yourself the story, I'm doing it for my family, right? I'm doing it to put food on the table. But if you're not carving out time, right, to meet your wife's needs, you're going to have a serious problem, and it's going to be more costly in the long run. When you get divorced, when some other guy is raising your kids, it's a problem.
Right.
It's a problem.
Oh, yeah, you spoke a mouthful just a second ago. Okay. Let's get off of that because I'm getting frustrated right now. What is 3 things that you would want your kids to remember you for when you're all done, you're retired, and you're home and whatever, you're enjoying time with your wife, and they speak about you, they give a speech about you at something, a birthday party. What are 3 things you would want them to remember you about?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, I want them to know that everything I did was for them, that I really gave everything in life to give them the opportunities that I didn't have, and also teach them the lessons that they need to be the best men they can possibly be going forward. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. Number 2 was that I love them unconditionally. I showed them love. I wasn't just the father that put a roof over their head, food on the table, and clothes on their back. Like I don't want to be known as the provider. I want to be known as the genuinely loving father. Mm-hmm. And then what I would want to say is I want them to see me treat their mother like she deserves to be treated, so that I can set them up to do the same thing in the next generation. Okay. And I think kids, and you said you have a family, so you know this, they might not always say something, but they see everything. Mm-hmm. So if the first thing I do when I come in the house is give my wife a hug and a kiss, and I bring her flowers and we celebrate and we're dancing in the kitchen, that's the stuff. I don't have to tell them I'm doing it. They see that I'm doing it. And then guess what? They take care of her as well.
Right.
And then they're going to do the same thing when they have relationships one day, if that's what they see constantly over the course of 18 years. So those 3 things for sure.
I want that when I get married, mm-hmm. They find someone in their life.
Yes.
Good one. What was the other question I was going to have? I said my brain didn't went away for a sec. Man, what was the question? I just had the question I was going to ask you in a second. It had to do with family life.
I was talking too much.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Here, actually, beside family life. Okay, who was your mentor? Who taught you? Did you have a mentor that taught you these things that progressed you on in life, that help you balance business and marriage?
So I didn't.
Or life was your mentor?
Life was my mentor. I would say having a really rough, rocky childhood that I had.
Mhm.
I didn't learn anything business-wise from my father, right? My father couldn't hold down a job. He was really, really bad with his finances, really, really bad. Even to this day, is terrible with finances. My mother never had any finances because of her drug problems and whatnot. I would say the one thing that I do need to give credit to my father for was that he always instilled a sense of faith in me. Like he was really always brought me back to, God is the number one. So I will say that from that perspective, he definitely led me there and then always brought me back there, even though he wasn't setting the example for it.
Right.
So his congruency wasn't there, but he always brought it back to that. And then for me, life was definitely a big teacher until I had that moment where I had nothing left and failed. And that's when I started to invest in coaches and mentors in a multitude of aspects of my life. So what I did was I sought out what I felt as though were the best people in a variety of fields, speaking, right, and influence and sales and marketing and team building and cultures and organizational fluidity, all this stuff. So I went to a bunch of different places to who I felt was the best at the given time in those areas.
Okay, and here's an interesting thing I want to see. I think some people have to go through certain paths in life to get to where they've gotten to.
Yeah.
You think if you weren't raised in that type of environment that you would have been as successful as you were? Versus if you were just raised in a, I don't know, white picket fence, nice family, nice to do family. Like you're raising a nice family now. Like
I know
you're cultivating your boys.
Yeah.
To be nice men. You have a nice wife, beautiful wife. Do you think if you were raised in that, you would have been the person you are today?
I wouldn't be this exact person. Like these Legos wouldn't make me up, right? Like where I stand today. And that's the biggest mental internal conversation that I have with myself. It's like, my goal is to make sure my boys do not face the things that I faced, right? They do not ever have to sleep in their car, right? They never have to worry about the cops coming to their house because their father hit their mother or their mother hit their father. Like that stuff will never happen. But I know that stuff is what enabled me to be really strong and resilient through turbulent times in my life. So what I need to do is teach them those principles in a different way so that they can become their own version of greatness. But no, to answer your question very succinctly, I wouldn't be the exact person I am today without that. No. So I'm thankful for it, for sure.
Right. And that's why I always think, going back to, God, everybody has a purpose, whether it doesn't seem like it was great on that side. Like it may have been bad what you went through. And, I feel for you for how your childhood was, but somehow they were a purpose to you to be who you are today.
1,000%.
And sometimes it's hard for people to see that because it's like, well, I'm going to do this to spite them. But if they weren't there, would they have been the success that they are? Now, it's not to say that doing what you're doing is wrong. I'm pretty sure statistics will show what you're doing is putting your children on the right path of success, and it works a whole lot more than on the other end. But sometimes that's how life works.
So to your point, man, I'm just trying to hedge with odds in the right direction, right? So if you take me, I am who I am, and I've had my struggles. I've had my places where things weren't great in life, but then you take my brother. My brother's a heroin addict. So me personally, I don't want to leave a 50-50 shot that those things that we saw could create 50-50 shot with my kids. I just want to say, hey, I don't know exactly what the outcome will be with my family. I don't know, but I want to do as much and everything that I possibly can to maybe give them a 99% shot or 95% shot. And then it's my job to teach. I look for every moment as a father. It doesn't matter what they did. They fell off the couch, right? It's a teaching moment.
Exactly.
Like everything is a teaching moment. So I embrace that for sure.
Great answer. Great answer. Now, this is the last segment we have of the show where I'm going to give you 3 words,
Okay.
and I just want you to describe how these words make you feel and what you think about when you hear these words.
Cool.
It doesn't have to be a couple sentences, whatever you have. Okay.
Cool.
First word I got for you is success.
I think success you have to be very careful how you define success. I think when I used to hear the word success, that meant wealth and money.
Right.
For me, now success is spending time with my family.
Mhm. Okay. Next word I have for you is longevity.
That's a good one. For me, longevity means being able to be as healthy and as functional as I possibly can be, as long as I can be, without being dependent on others.
Uh, and I was going through a little story in there earlier in there. That's the kind of thing I forgot when you were talking about health being a concern and how that can throw your business off and not having the right people around you and stuff. I had COVID,
Mhm.
and that threw me out of the game for like a couple weeks,
Mhm.
and it was hard for me to recover. But I'm talking about business wise,
Sure.
but I can see how that can be a big deal if you don't deal with your health and you're sicker
Oh
longer,
yeah. Yeah.
chronically sick. How can you take care of a business or your family if you don't take care of your health?
Not possible.
Yeah, just want to throw that one part in
Yeah,
there. I forgot to mention that part.
for sure.
Last word for you: obstacle.
I say at this point in my life, bring it on. Just because of what I told you before, I have a very different relationship now,
Mhm.
right? With those types of things. If there's an obstacle in the way, I think it as an opportunity to improve and get better and change direction. So obstacles are just, they're just opportunities to be uncovered, I believe.
Good answer. Okay. All right, Ryan Braves. Is there anything you would like to promote before we sign off?
And no promoting. I mean, 2 simple ways to get in touch with me if anyone ever wanted to. My website, myascensionbydesign.com. Really, really easy. And then something else. Second thing is something I created. I would say going back like maybe 6, 8 weeks ago. A lot of my buddies and my current clients were busting my chops that I'm not really big on social media and Facebook. I kind of hate it. I like being more in the moment than I do like being on those things. But with some convincing, they asked me to create a private Facebook group. So I
Mhm.
created a private Facebook group called Ascension of the Entrepreneur. And inside that private Facebook group, we have guys that are looking to do big things in life, right? Just like looking to improve life in whatever area, in their health, in their finances, in their family. And we come together and it's an opportunity to have a community, right? Someone throws out a question. Hey, man, I'm struggling with this. I
Mhm.
personally will get in there and provide feedback. And then also the other people in the group will be like, hey, brother, I went through that last year, right? This is how I got through it. So my goal there is just to create a community of guys that are looking to do the same thing.
Okay. All right. Ryan Braves, I like to thank you again for coming on the show, or Ryan Braves. Hopefully we'll be able to put an accent on there by the end of the year. I'd like to thank you again for coming on Hostile Therapy with Big Red. And thanks for everyone for checking out the show, getting some hostile therapy, not because you want it, but because you need it. We'll see you on the next podcast. Have a nice day, everybody.